before we talk about the big game coming up this upcoming Monday, let's look back at the games from last week, the college football playoff semifinals. Of course, Notre Dame defeating Penn State in the Orange Bowl, Ohio State over Texas in the Cotton Bowl. We'll start in the Orange Bowl, guys, and maybe Matt, I'll kick it to you first here. Takeaways from the game: good, bad, ugly. What surprised you? What didn't surprise you?
Yeah, I think the ability to overcome the turnovers on the side of Notre Dame was what I was most surprised with. I thought the way both defenses were playing, that any type of turnover resulting in points for the offense, which we saw in the late Leonard interception that turned into a touchdown for Penn State. I thought that was kind of the nail in the coffin, given Notre Dame's inability to score quickly throughout the season, especially against a stronger defense. I mean, we saw them do it against, like Stanford, but never really saw them have that quick explosive play that they got to Jaden Greathouse, which I think the Penn State defenders are still on skates down in Florida at this point. But I think that was probably the most surprising aspect to that, is just that we haven't seen them hit that big play they need throughout this playoffs. So to see that happen when it happened, I thought was kind of the most surprising. The good was just, I think both defenses really put on a solid performance. It's a shame that it was the offense on both sides that kind of made the mistakes, because normally we don't see that, especially with Notre Dame. Leonard's usually pretty careful with the ball because he doesn't throw it a lot. So it was nice to just kind of see them make those plays when they needed to. And for all the criticism that Franklin gets, and rightly so, I think,
rightly so,
in this game specifically, that
rightly so,
all at the end where everyone was like, "Why are you throwing? Go into overtime." I think that was the right play call in that moment, just poor execution. So
yeah, well, here's the thing too, and I think it gets lost in the James Franklin rhetoric and things like that. The two primary targets that Penn State had been hitting all game, Singleton and Warren. Notre Dame, for the first time pretty much all night, did a hell of a job at actually covering those two targets. If you go back and watch that replay, Warren goes to the top of the screen and Notre Dame covers it. That was Drew Aller's first look, and then he looked for Singleton low. He was covered. And then there's a blitzer coming in, linebacker blitzing in, and Aller has to make a quick choice. Now, probably should have thrown it 30 yards up into the stands. I'm very happy that he chose not to do that.
Why is that, Jim?
Tried to force the pass in. Obviously, we know what happens, but the play I don't think was the problem. I think it was the execution. I think, and obviously we'll let Kyle and Mike talk about, but I think one of my surprises, if you would have told me before the semifinal games that one set of players would ruin the losing team and one set of coaches would ruin the losing team, I would have had the two sets flip-flopped. I would have guessed coaching would have hurt Penn State and players would have hurt Texas, and I think we had the opposite. But student of the game, what did your thoughts on the Orange Bowl?
I am on the exact opposite, actually. I did not enjoy the playing call, or as well, I shouldn't say I didn't enjoy it. I think that was the wrong move. You go to overtime, especially in a game where you're damn well certain that you have not completed damn pass to a wide receiver. Hello? So get yourself into the red zone. Do this BS overtime rules of college, which suck horribly. Yeah. So I mean, I think that shorter space actually serves Penn State. And listen, the worst decision of all was obviously. Yeah, exactly. The worst decision of all was trying to throw it off your back foot and make something happen. Definitely not as big a James Franklin crime, but this is the kind of stuff we've come to know and love from him. So to your point, Matt, maybe you can make the philosophical argument. Maybe it wasn't a horrible play call, but it still, in my opinion, makes James Franklin kind of culpable as a repeat offender, because there was a great defense to not do it, especially in that particular instance. Also learned for all the mistakes that were made, the ones who didn't make them late Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman at work as a coach, keeping his guys sharp in crunch time, and once again having his guys more poised. Just like the previous game against Kirby Smart's guys, where he got somebody to jump off sides like a moron on the Georgia side too. So I think we're just seeing more of Marcus Freeman doing Marcus Freeman things. The argument could be made by Penn State that they did plenty to shoot themselves in the foot with the drop pass and the fall-in corner that then turned into a long run because of a safety that got owned. But at the end of the day, in those big moments, that's where that coaching concept comes into play. So I stand to be far more harsh on James Franklin than you, Matt. But hey, at the end of the day, I know you live with somebody that would give you a harder time.
I will say that if it goes to overtime, I don't think Notre Dame walks out of there with a win. So I understand the criticism coming from that side of it. I just think after you get the 13-yard gain on the first run, it makes sense to see what you can get on a passing play down the field.
Yeah, they did have about 45 seconds and 2 timeouts. So to move the ball,
it's the 2 timeouts that make me question it more than anything.
Yeah,
else.
I don't, and I think that's like the play call probably not as big of an issue as it was the execution by Drew Allen. And when your 2 biggest targets are covered, just get the ball out of there, man. You're a junior 3-year starter. You should probably be more aware than that.
Apparently a number 1 pick too.
Allegedly.
Thank you
to the Giants.
Allegedly.
But here's hoping.
Jets.
But here's the thing: when you have, and Kyle brought it up, and I want to piggyback on it. That's another option. When you don't complete a pass to a wide receiver the entire time, hello, what are we doing? You're like, oh. Let's throw it to the alleged tight end of the year.
Allegedly.
I will fight that battle for the kid from Bowling Green, but that's neither here nor there. But Tyler Warren will probably be a first-round draft pick, and that's okay. When you have a guy who's been as good as he was in the Orange Bowl, because he was good in that game, get to overtime. Get to overtime at that point. Because at that point, you're putting your best player, Tyler Warren, your best running back, the pair of them, you're putting them 25 yards away from a shot to give you a chance to win a football game.
Also, Mike, let me add this too. What you say is correct, and I will add this. Both players can help in both dimensions of an offense simultaneously, thus making them even scarier. So, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad Drew Aller made a bad choice on Thursday evening. I'm not going to lie about it. Because I agree with Matt. I think like Notre Dame had kind of grabbed the momentum in the third quarter, but it was starting to slip away, and I'm right there with you. Like as Penn State after they had scored to tie, and then they get the ball back, I'm just sitting here going, this is where this is how it happens. This is how
aware.
I'm
aware.
God bless Mike. God bless Matt. God bless my wife. They went through it with me. But yeah, I'm like I said, I'm glad Drew Aller made a poor decision. Devin, I agree with you. I think Franklin kept his job. I don't think he was going to get fired once I think they cleared the first round. I don't think there was any danger of James Franklin getting fired this year. I really don't.
I mean, 0.0 when you get through SMU and Boise State.
You
won the 2 games that you were supposed to win.
Yeah,
put yourself in the Final Four. Then it's a crapshoot.
Had they gotten run off their own field by SMU, maybe you ask some hard questions this offseason. But I don't think there's any danger.
There wasn't going to be an easier path. And please, with all due respect to the Notre Dame brethren who are both wearing their jerseys like the fucking homers they are. It's the path any easier for Notre Dame? With no disrespect to Notre Dame, I had said, it wasn't on this show, obviously, but it was on the Student of the Game podcast, if not the Earnestly Speaking. The bar is set at Notre Dame. If you couldn't beat Notre Dame, you probably weren't winning a national championship anyway, so the hell with you. Notre Dame's job was to be an equalizer and thin the herd at the very least. And they thinned the herd of Indiana. They got rid of a Georgia team that was not as good because they didn't have a starting quarterback. They needed to be thinned out as well. And actually, I think I said this to you, Jim, as a matter of fact, Student Game Podcast. So Notre Dame did its job. Penn State needed to clear the bar. And if this is an Olympic sport and they failed the pole vault here, I'm sorry. The hard questions have to be asked, much to the chagrin of Penn State haters like my good friend, the AJ Hawk of the show, Matt Muehlheisen. Like, the questions need to be asked, okay? Just like Ryan Day's going to get the same treatment just for losing to Michigan.
I think it's a fair point. I think given that even in the 3 losses he had, granted, you say James Franklin can't win the big games. He had 3 opportunities. He lost all 3 of them. I get that. But they didn't get run off the field. I think that, keeping it close with Ohio State, keeping it close with Oregon, I think that was kind of probably enough for him. And again, fingers crossed to keep his job. But I think that the bar in the past has been they have not been competitive in these games. This year, they were at least competitive in them. And I think that's what the Penn State fans were looking for. They, obviously to win those 2 games means a lot too. Beating SMU and Boise State, like Mikey said, they did the job that was in front of them. And I think that coupled with keeping it competitive with the other 3 is enough to give them one more shot, especially with all the players they have returning next
I was going to say, I think the window is if they don't make the Final Four / national title game, if Drew Allard comes back with all the weapons that they're going to have return, then I think the James Franklin hot seat is infernoed. I think this year you kind of look at it, you go, all right, we got to the Final Four of this thing. We know how it works now. Let's get the pieces to come back. Let's give it one more run. And if it doesn't work, then we make the decision to move on from there.
Especially when Penn State kind of operated with the, Notre Dame under Brian Kelly, Michigan under Jim Harbaugh mindset of, something's not working on both sides of the ball. You bring in new defensive coach, new offensive coach. They looked quite a bit different. Now, again, hit the portal for some wide receivers if you're Penn State. That's probably that's probably your number one priority. But they looked a lot different than previous years on offense. They looked a little bit more creative. So, I don't think you scrap what you were doing after 1 year. Now come back a year from now, and maybe we're having a different discussion if they don't perform.
But I mean, how many lives does this guy get, man? And y'all are making the
Marvin
defense
Lewis.
Marvin Lewis wasn't the problem, sir. That's a conversation we should have on the Student of the Game podcast.
I agree with that assessment. I'm just saying Marvin Lewis got 39 lives because it was coordinator problems, player problems. It was a wide receiver, and the year before it was coordinator problems. They fixed the coordinator problems. Now,
this ain't that though. Like, and let me be clear: the point of view I'm coming from is obviously the repeat offender space. And while your witty, thoroughly enjoyable retort of Marvin Lewis is apropos, I don't think it holds water here. Now, if the defense really is, well, he did this, let's see what happens. Boy, howdy, he got a lot more lives than a lot of other coaches do. And really, in a power vacuum, that is the Big Ten. You're missing an opportunity if everything's going the way that you're saying. I'm throwing that out there.
Oh, sure. No, I agree. But I also think the expansion of the playoff in the format, and we have our own issues with the format that we've talked about over the duration of this season.
Something will be different, I'm sure.
Right. I'm sure something is going to change in the short term. But when you expand the field, because maybe if the field isn't expanded and it is a 4-team playoff, I mean, as the schedule played out, Penn State would have made it anyway. Now probably wouldn't have been as pretty, with a different first round matchup, but they would have at least gotten there. And then you would have had a different conversation because he didn't win any postseason game. But I think with the format, they kind of give him the opportunity to say, hey, go out there, make it, and then we'll talk. So, but Mikey B, your takeaways from the Orange Bowl.
So we focused on the last drive a lot in this portion of the show. I'm going to focus on something else that needs to be addressed here. The middle 8 minutes.
Nice.
The last 4 minutes of the first half, the first 4 minutes of the third quarter. Backup quarterback comes in.
Nice.
Drives Notre Dame down the field. They get points before the half. I text Jim as soon as that happened. I said, first drive, have to score no matter what. I said, I don't care if it's 3 points. I don't care if it's 7. You got to put points on that board, especially whenever they say Riley Leonard's coming back in the football game. We've given James Franklin a lot of flack on this show, and rightly so, 9 out of 10 times.
Right.
Rightly so.
We gave him a little bit.
So
We gave him a little bit of flack for the play call. Now we've said it's Drew Allard with his decision making. That's neither here nor there.
Two things could be true. Mike.
Correct. What I will say is my frustration, if I'm a Penn State fan, and my concern: how do you come out that flat to start the second half? Because you've been able to stop the Notre Dame run game the entire first half. You know, if you're James Franklin, there's a 50-50 chance that Riley Leonard's coming back out there. If not, you have a backup quarterback. So they're going to run the football probably on that first drive to make sure Riley Leonard's head isn't knocked into an oblivion if he does come back into the game. Or you try to stop the run on the first 2 plays, then you blitz a backup quarterback who hasn't seen active plays in a football game since a kneel down and the drive to end the second half.
Right.
You're literally sitting there going, you know what? Here, guys, here you go. Just run it right down our throat for the next 4.5 minutes and score.
Right, and that comes down to defensive coaching because at the time I was like, well, maybe the backup quarterback helped them, where like help Notre Dame, where like the defense is like, well, we don't have to, a lot for a quarterback run, but like if he does come back, we do. But that's what the coaching has. You have a half hour there to be like, okay, if it's Leonard, here's the plan. If it's not, here's the plan, and like you had to be ready to go. And
it genuinely felt like on that middle 4, it just felt like they were not ready to win a football game because you stop Notre Dame there, you've now put yourself legitimately in a spot with a score that game is over.
Mike, your wife's looking for her.
I know.
Lady Caliente talking D shit.
So are the authorities.
Wait, I thought he was the authorities. I'm very confused now, man.
Depends
No,
who
Mike,
you ask.
Yeah, Mike, that's a great point. That's something that Notre Dame's really focused on, not only over the course of the season, but in this college football playoff. You look at the Sugar Bowl. Those 8 minutes are probably the biggest reason Notre Dame beat Georgia.
Sugar Bowl for sure.
The game on its head in those 8 minutes, and they were able to score probably the most important 10 points of their season in the Orange Bowl.
I gave Freeman 60 seconds suffocating already, Jim. We're good.
Well, and Jim, you have coaches in football that and the coin toss is what gets me. You have coaches that'll win a coin toss and want the ball, and you have coaches that win a coin toss and they want the ball in the second half. And when you're playing that middle 8 minutes, you always want the ball in the second half.
Yeah.
Like if that's where your focus is, and there was no doubt when Notre Dame won that toss that they were going to take the ball in the second half.
Yep. They've been doing it all year, but yeah, it's a great point, Mike. Sean, your takeaway from the Orange Bowl.
Well, I mean, the one takeaway I do have, and as much as like Mike said that we've beaten up Franklin and that we've beaten up Penn State, they came to play. I thought it was a much better effort from them, and that defense, we really hadn't seen them overly battle tested. They did not have a lot of the big rivalry games we see some years on the schedule, and I felt because of that we discredited them some. That defense was definitely better than even I thought they were.
Even without Abdul Carter, Sean.
Yeah,
by the way.
I mean they've got a pass rusher with one arm who still couldn't be stopped. Injuries to the offensive line on the Irish side helped that some, but yeah, I mean I think the takeaway for me on the Notre Dame side of the ball is that they don't quit. This team is not going to lay down. They learned what laying down will do when they did it against Northern Illinois before the game even started, and I don't think you've seen them lay down since. And I think Ohio State's going to have their handful. I will say this with the Penn State takeaways that you guys kind of were alluding to, and the wide receivers you guys talked about. Obviously, that's a main focus. But talking to some buddies of mine that are in the Penn State faithful, who are way higher on Allard than I am, but a lot of belief that with the arm and stuff like that, he's a fellow that may be playing on Sundays.
Oh, smoke.
Yeah, I mean, but if that's the case, even they were saying like to have a guy with that arm strength and to have a guy that like presumably could be a good college quarterback and then not have wide receivers for him to throw to when you're a school that over the past decade has put a ton of wide receivers into the NFL. And to not have one for this guy's career is fairly unfortunate, especially now that his tight end is about to go make millions of dollars. So probably already was. But we probably already making millions of dollars. That guy's good. Yeah, he's gonna be a good show on Sundays. But Notre Dame didn't quit. Penn State was impressive. Next year the big question mark from Penn State for me is going to be what the schedule looks like, and if there are bigger games, can Franklin even get back on this road another time? So that would be my question mark for them going into the season.
He won't always have a G5 team and an ACC team in his way. That's not always going to go that way, buddy. That's a good point by you, Sean.
Penn State's 2025 football schedule real quick. Nevada, FIU, Villanova, off. Oregon at UCLA, Northwestern at Iowa, off. At Ohio State, Indiana, Michigan State on the road, Nebraska at Rutgers.
So please tell me again what's wrong with Alabama.
2 losses on that schedule.
Still no Michigan.
Yeah, there's one confirmed loss in Columbus in November 1st.
And a 50-50 game at home against Oregon in September.
Against Oregon, depending what they do in the transfer portal.
They always ride the struggle bus to Iowa, though. They always ride the struggle bus to Iowa.
That'll probably be
if they lose any other game, they're out of the playoff. Or they better be. More on that.
Yeah, weird things happen in Kinnick.
Hey, Villanova's good.
They're not better than Vanderbilt.
At basketball.
One more question with Franklin. I know he came in after Bill O'Brien kind of unceremoniously left, much to the chagrin of a lot of Penn State fans because of how he had turned that program around after the Paterno thing. How much of it is just loyalty to Franklin for stepping in and not scorning them, do you think? Because, I mean, we see they stick with coaches past the expiration date.
So Tomlin defense. I like it.
I was going to say the NCAA version of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Correct.
I mean, by the way,
does the school never notice that, like, when the NFL has a million jobs open and they're calling all the colleges, that no one's calling Happy Valley? Do they not notice that? Like, I don't know. I never see Franklin interviewing with the Raiders. You don't see that. He's like, even the Raiders are like, we're good, thanks.
Or hey, maybe. And you're probably right, but maybe Penn State and their upper echelon is smart enough to keep it all in house and get in front of it and say, "Yo, James, here's the deal. No," and do something for him. I don't know what it would be exactly, but hey, it's a separate conversation.
He has a secretary that just hangs up. Just puts it back.
It is kind of the Mike Tomlin defense. I mean, he's it's a regular season winning percentage of 71. He's just over 500 in postseason play. Obviously, we know he hasn't won any huge ones. He has a conference title, so it is kind of that.
He doesn't finish under 500.
Right. His only losing season came in the 2020 pandemic season, which might as well be thrown away. Right.
The only way it could be more perfect is if
neither do we.
Yeah, the only way it could be more perfect is if he coached for Pitt instead of Penn. Then it would be geographically accurate as well.
Fair. Man, I don't get to see a lot of Penn State's games, but I think I said something to Jim on the phone. I was like they interviewed him at halftime, and I think I just forgot what a zany, weird, animated.
Yeah,
it's like a cartoon character that has no script. It's just
and I mean, it's kind of perfect
on the field. Bro. And I was like, what is he saying?
It's kind of perfect for a school in the middle of a mountain in Western PA.
Yeah, I mean, it's like an animated cat trying to impersonate John Madden and getting the voice wrong.
Yeah,
we need to score more points.
You saw that in the pregame interview with him and Freeman too, where he was just saying stupid shit the whole time. It's like, what are you doing?
I still think he was deflecting so nobody pointed out that this was a big game. Yeah, he's like, if I just keep talking, no one will point out that I can't win.
Freeman wants to powerbomb me through a table. Maybe they'll forget it's a big one.
What I hear you telling me is I am desperate for Penn State to come to the Citrus Bowl so I can see this in person.
There you go.
I mean,
Kyle, as somebody who's been in those rooms, you really should go watch some of the coaches' press conference from last Tuesday, because there was a weird vibe in that room. It was very weird. Yeah,
it was like a very business. Well, one, like Freeman, as far as a human being, is a very beautiful human being, and he's like very huge, and he's like all business, and he's just, I'm here to talk about a game, and Franklin's just putting on a clown show and like juggling, and you're just like, what is he?
Buddy, try being in a room with Ed Ogeron and Bobby Petrino. That's a fucking vibe, boys. Okay, that's a fucking vibe.
When you've also been in the room with the Saban and Harbaugh year one, right?
That's a completely different vibe.
That's a whole different vibe.
That's a good God. If I move the wrong way, I'm going to get shot vibe.
Yeah,
like, I'm just gonna sit here.
I said.
Ryan checks in with this is the natty is a lose for him. He's pulling for the refs.
Cry harder, Ryan.
Oh, okay. So you're
crew, so they're fine.
Don't make a Chiefs joke. Don't do it, Burn. You're too predictable.
That wasn't where I was going. I was going for you. So you're rooting for pass interferences that don't make any sense.
Wow.
Oh God, that's too real to be funny, Mike. Shit.
I mean, Tyler Warren, triple coverage. Hey, let's just
actually Ryan likes chaos, so he probably wouldn't mind that.
Yeah,
probably. My biggest takeaway, besides some of the points I already made, was just that Notre Dame stuck to what they wanted to do. And if you look at the locker room speech at halftime. The message was don't panic. This was always going to be a fight. Let's go out and win the fight. And that's what they did. So that's what Notre Dame football's been this year. And hopefully they have one more, but let's switch gears now to the Cotton Bowl from Friday. Of course, Ohio State, like I said, 28-14 over Texas. Mike, I'll start with you this time. Your biggest takeaway from the Cotton Bowl.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Oh geez. Oh,
I think my biggest takeaway in the entire situation here is for a guy who is an offensive guru, and I've brought this up on this show before, Steve Sarkisian. I keep hearing about it. This great offensive mind. You are in the red zone. You have now been stopped from the 1 yard line. Let's run it. But pitch it 7 yards back behind the line of scrimmage and give the Ohio State defense a running shot to stop us.
You have a quarterback that's ever done it. But God, that was awful.
You have a quarterback on the sideline who you've used to run the football and have explosive plays, including in that game. And you're like, you know what?
What you do?
Let's pitch it 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Let's keep viewers in there. Have them throw one behind him. They'll never see that coming.
So,
I just want it to be this Texas team coming into this game was practically left for dead because they were in a fight with Arizona State. You found a way to keep Ohio State out of the end zone as much as they did in that football game. Kudos to the Texas defense. I will give all the credit in the world to that defense for showing up and stopping an offense that coming out of the Rose Bowl, we looked up, I think all of us did, and said, Ohio State by 1,000,000. Texas may not even make it to halftime.
Yeah.
Because of how bad the defense played against Arizona State. Credit to those coaches for getting that team ready to play defense against as good of an offense as Ohio State is.
By the way, your both Scatterboo disrespect is noted, sir. Carry on.
Whoa.
It's a joke. It's a joke. Relax.
I've made him the fourth thing for sure in life. Death, taxes, the over, and Camp Scatterbo.
You're welcome.
So, I look at it from this perspective.
It's a joke.
For Steve Sarkisian, who's a offensive-minded coach and an offensive guru that we've heard Kurt Herbstreit talk about 7,000
allegedly
times.
Oh God, I was hoping you were going to push that button, Jen. Thank you.
I mean, I knew it was coming. So, but Kurt Herbstreit has told us a bajillion times about how great of an offensive mind he is. That offensive play calling in the red zone, not great, Bob.
Not great, Bob.
I wasn't going to voice act that one.
I think just clinging to yours the entire time was just, you're just kind of like, are you just that full of your own offensive like prowess that you're like,
the answer is yes, Sean.
Like, I can win with this guy. I don't need a Manning. I can win with this one. Like, you're not winning. Make a change. Like, what are you?
Yeah. Absolute insanity. Student of the game, your takeaway from the Cotton Bowl.
First of all, the Texas offensive performance put the U in Ewers. I'll put it that way.
Nice.
one might say I was quitting on Ewers. See, because it's close to Quinton. I've never been a Ewers guy. I think I've been very public about that, et cetera, et cetera.
I don't think you've been public enough about it. I had no idea until about 8 seconds ago.
This fucking guy. Now he's telling jokes on my turn. I love this shit. It's great. I love that I could be on a show I could curse on again, by the way. Exactly, right? This guy gets it. Don't
Ewers going to be playing for somebody else. That's for sure.
Facts of the case. I'm surprised he didn't end up in Miami. More on that later.
He doesn't date one of the Cavender twins.
Correct. I get why everybody's killing Sarkisian on the toss play. I understand why it happened, and the guy who explains it way better than I could on this podcast is one Joel Klatt. They saw something in the film, they couldn't run it up the middle, and so they were desperate. And desperate people do stupid shit. That's what it comes down to, right? And there's something about purposely going backwards in a goal line play in a field that's already shortened that enhances the risk. In other words, if it works, you're a genius. On that particular play, there is literally, outside of a turnover, no way you could fucking look worse. So I think the blowback is a touch. I think the blowback is a touch overblown. Credit to Ohio State's defense for being that stout in the middle. They're probably going to have more guys go to the NFL than that group. But for me, this is more about Ewers being exposed for the mediocre quarterback that he is. And may he have good luck transferring. I'm convinced that when the comparisons to Danny Dimes came out, he opted to stay in college to get just as much money in NIL as he would get in the pros.
Time out. I'm gonna get paid in another year of college. Yeah, I'm not gonna go there. Matt, your takeaway from the Cotton Bowl.
I mean, that was the biggest thing for me, is to have first and goal from the 1, and that turned into a touchdown for Ohio State is just fucking wild. Like that should not happen. Worst case scenario, they wouldn't have kicked a field goal, but like that would have been better than what transpired. Anything but what happened. And like Mike said, credit to the defense for actually showing up, because Ohio State does have a lot of talent and a lot of money invested into that offense. So to see Texas be able to, do what they did, where not a lot of teams have been able to shut down Ohio State scoring like they did, beyond Michigan, as gross as that is to say. So I think that there is a blueprint to beat Ohio State, and I think two teams have tried their best to do it. It's just there's so much talent on both sides of that ball, and I think we saw that during that game specifically, that offensively and defensively, money well spent for the recruiting.
There's the message right there from my wife is got to study the Michigan defensive film.
Well, and far be it from me to battle with the great Mrs. Jim, but Ryan Day has also kind of pulled his head out of his ass and actually coached his team as the finesse team that they are. There's that too.
Sure.
Yeah.
He's using the weapons the way they're intended to be used. Yeah.
No disrespect to the Ohio State coaching staff for what they've done in the postseason, but I think that there's a difference between, Michigan's defense and the defenses of Tennessee and Oregon.
I mean, okay,
there's apparently differences from that to the defense of Texas, and now a Notre Dame defensive unit. Like I have faith in what that defensive unit can do. More on that in a second.
The Michigan defense came out and smacked the finesse team right in the face, and Ryan Day was like, "Oh, what do I do now?"
They refused to run a finesse offense too at the same time.
Correct, but I'm saying we've also talked about Tennessee trying to go out there and intimidate somebody by practicing with no shirts on. That was stupid. And to be fair, I know I selected Oregon to win the national title, and I doubled down on that in that game. That team hasn't played a physical style of defense since
ever.
I'm waiting till I can think of a year. No, I ain't got nothing.
1990 never.
1990 never. This guy.
Yeah, the last time I think they played physical defense, Joey Harrington was playing quarterback for Oregon. So yes, a finesse team that didn't play a defense, that kind of walked up and just kind of punched them right in the mouth. Texas attempted to punch him in the mouth. And I think for a while, Texas was able to keep that team from being as explosive as it was because of the physicality that it played with. It just didn't help that the greatest offensive mind in Texas college football and Quinn Ewers decided to.
Yeah.
So,
Ryan, yeah, I agree with you. Much like Devin said earlier about James Franklin and his job, Ryan Day's job no longer on the line in Columbus. No, I think he is very much solidified himself. The only way he's not back in Columbus is if he would take an NFL job. But
can't wait to see
Hey,
Ryan
don't rule
Day
it
in
out.
Las
Maybe he's
Vegas.
sick of their crap.
well, maybe. Sean, your takeaway from the Cotton Bowl.
Ryan Day's job not on the line. Ryan Day's still not in line to have a barber actually cut that beard of his. Just continues to let
Ryan
the
Day,
neighborhood
PhD.
kids do it or whatever, whoever's doing that. God, what a mess that is. Speaking of clown shoes, Franklin's not the only clown shoes Big Ten coach. Day's kind of a candidate for that award. But as far as takeaway of this game, you guys hit on a lot of them. Obviously, the offense and those things. The other big one I would say is by the time we were in the second half and you saw Ohio State flexing their muscle on both sides of the ball and Texas continuing to outthink themselves and, not seem to really have a strategy, you could almost feel as it got closer. Now, that goal line play that drive was a little different. But in the second half, I thought when the two teams were lining up, no matter who had the ball, that one team looked more afraid to be there than the other team. And I thought Texas looked timid. There was very, very much a just don't give up a big play or don't do, there was no longer an effort of we have to play our game. They didn't have a game left. And I think once that moment happened for me, I was like, this team's not going to win anything because they don't even know what they're going to do if they touch the ball. So, I think it was just a tale of two teams. You have a Big 12 school hiding in the SEC that forgot that, we used to not have to play defense. And you have a Big 10 school that really like Kyle said, the defensive middle and the defensive front. And I mean, the secondary I knew was fast, but they didn't even have to be because Ewers had no time to do anything. Hats off to Ohio State. They drew up a much better game, and we're just gonna have to hope the national championship goes a little different.
Yeah, I think I look at not only the pitch play there that backfired very dramatically, but then I also look at the first half when Texas defense did everything they could after a first drive Ohio State touchdown, and with relative ease they go down and score, and it's like, oh, that's not good. Texas.
Yeah, I remember being that was fast.
Texas goes 3 and out. Ohio State goes down the field with very little resistance, and it's
almost 3 and in. Yeah.
It was this is going to be a long night for one fan base. And then Texas defense just settled in and didn't give up another point. Their offense finds a way to get on the board, and then on the very next play, the first play of the Ohio State drive, you decide to blitz everybody except for that one guy who did his best to catch up to the Ohio State running back. And I'm going, why of all the things to do there, that was the decision to just bring everybody in white across the line that just you have 20 seconds. Ohio State gets the ball after the half, so just don't give up a big play. What's the worst that happens? They kick a field goal and you go in down 3. Okay, big deal. Now all of a sudden,
someone in the front row yelled, "Get the ball!" and everyone went, "Okay." I'm just
and I'm just
he's talking to me.
It was just like, what of all the things? So really, I mean, and granted, you don't give up a touchdown there. You don't know how Ohio State attacked the start of the second half, whatever. But man, when you look at a 2-score game and literally 2 plays where 2 Ohio State scores, you have to kind of wonder. Could Texas have won the game? Even if they did look like the more scared teams at time, even if their quarterback was dramatically, the lesser than quarterback on the field, they were still 2 plays, literal 2 plays from winning. So it's I don't envy the Texas
All the
fans-
I'm sorry, Jim. All the cameos on Mikey Bird's camera is completely
There's just
fucking me
nuts.
up
There's
here.
like howling
Children,
dogs in
cats.
the distance, and there's cats roaming through the shot. This is just insane.
Are you
Like
like,
the
are you
weather's going to
okay,
change
Mike?
and he's
Are you
indoors.
There's gonna be like lightning, like just in the background.
like
You want to say something? You want to defend yourself? Yeah.
but that is where I can't think of any better spot to leave the college
Matter,
football playoff.
Cat got your tongue there, Jim.
Well played.
I see
Well
what
played.
you did there, sir.